Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivara Dari Jamuna Tiravanachari Jamuna Tiravanachari Jashoda Nandana Jaya Raja Jana Ranjana Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, and good morning, very dear devotees. It's nice to be, it's wonderful to be in your company today. Sincerely. We are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, Creation, and chapter 15, the Pandavas retire timely. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So I will read, and then if you'd like to practice the words that Shukadeva Goswami spoke, then we can do that as well. Yaya harad bhuvo bharam tam tanum vijaha aja kantakam kanta keneva dvayam chapi shitu samam. Yaya harad bhuvo bharam tam tanum vijaha aja kantakam kantaka keneva dvayam chapi shitu samam. Yaya harad bhuvo bharam tam tanum vijahaja kantakam kantakeneva dvayam chapi shitu samam. If anyone would like to recite, you may. If not, I can go on.
I can try, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Yaya harad bhuvo bharam tam tanu vijahi aja kantakam kantake neva dvayam chapi situ samam. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
I can try. यया हरदभुवो भारं तां तनुं विजहाव अजः कण्ठकं कण्ठकेनेव द्वयं चापि शितुः समम्. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, very nice.
I like to try, Prabhu.
Jai.
यया हारद्भवो भार्यं तं तनुं विजहा अजः कन्तकं कन्तकेनेव द्वयं चापि श्रुतं समम्. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you. Okay. So let's go through the word by word and the translation that Srila Prabhupada has given. So the yaya, that by which, aharat, took away. This is also the similar to the word hari, he who causes liberations, aharat, so taken away. Bhuva, the world. Bhutale, so bhuva of the world, bharam, burden, tam, that, tanum, body, vijaho, relinquished, ajaha, the unborn. So janma we know is birth, and when you put an a, the prefix a, it negates it. So aja, not born. Or jati is one's birth, right? Kantakam, thorn, kantakena, by the thorn. Eva, like that. Dvayam, both. Cha, api. Sorry, cha, also. Api, although. Ishitu, controlling. Samam, equal. So ishitu, we see the same. Ishwara, it's the same root. Ish. So Ishwara is the one who's controller, and Ishitu is the controlling. So the translation, the purport are given by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Unborn, Lord Sri Krishna, caused the members of the Yadu dynasty to relinquish their bodies, and thus He relieved the burden of the world. This action was like picking out a thorn with a thorn, though both are the same to the controller. Purport. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur suggests that the rishis like Shaunaka and others who were hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from Sutta Goswami at Naimisharanya were not happy to hear about the Yadus dying in the madness of intoxication. Let's pause here for a moment to remember in the Gita, Sri Krishna says that the austerity of speech is saying that which is truthful and also speaking that which is pleasing. And this is a nice glimpse into the attitude that Sutta Goswami um, is feeling when he's speaking to the devotees. Sometimes we may have to say something unpalatable when we're talking about Krishna consciousness, because Krishna consciousness is the natural state of seeing the world, but we're not always seeing the world in the natural state. We're seeing the world in a kind of diluted or illusory state. Um, so. Uh, So sometimes we'll have to say something that isn't palatable to others, but there is a way that we can also speak the truth, all which is at times unpalatable, but be conscientious of, well, how can we say it in a way that is nice? There's always two different ways of saying something, that you could say, Prabhu, your dhoti looks terrible, or Prabhu, that tilak is slanted, or you can say, I you you can say, like, I love when you put your dhoti together in that special way, or I like when you do put the tilak in such an elegant way, and call attention to the good, and then give a person the opportunity to see the good that way as well. Um, so Sutta Goswami is now speaking this verse because he's aware of his audience, and he's aware that they're hearing about Yudhishthir deciding to leave the planet. Mother Kunti, like we read last week, about Mother Kunti just dedicating herself full-heartedly to the service of Sri Krishna, and disconnecting herself from external occupations. And so these listeners are so enthralled. Uh, so yes, to give them relief from this mental agony, Sutta Goswami assured them that the Lord caused the members of the Yadu dynasty to relinquish their bodies, by which they had to take away the burden of the world. The Lord and his eternal associates appeared on earth to help the administrative demigods in eradicating the burden of the world. He therefore called for some of the confidential demigods to appear in the Yadu family and serve him in his great mission. After the mission was fulfilled, the demigods, by the will of the Lord, relinquished their corporeal bodies by fighting amongst themselves in the madness of intoxication. The demigods are accustomed to drinking the soma rasa beverage, and therefore the drinking of wine and intoxication are not unknown to them. Sometimes they were put into trouble for indulging in intoxication. One of the sons of Kuvera, once the sons of Kuvera fell in the wrath of Narada for being intoxicated, but afterwards they regained their original forms by the grace of the Lord Sri Krishna. We shall find the story in the 10th canto. Um, does anyone remember the names of the sons of Kuvera for extra bonus points?
Nalakuvera and Manigriva.
Jai. 10 points for what school are you in, Prabhu? Are you Gryffindor or Hufflepuff or
ISKCON. Trying to help.
ISKCON? 10 points for ISKCON. Jai. Yeah, and later in the Gopal Champu, Jiva Goswami is going to reveal who Nala Kuvera and Manigriva are in the spiritual world. Um, and this is so important for us to know because the arc of the life of a jiva takes so many apparent turns and it's such a glorious culmination in arriving at Krishna. So a lot of us in our conditioned state, we can take knowledge and solace in hearing the story of Nala Kuvera and Manigriva. We can identify with being proud of our positions. Not Kuvera is the treasurer of the demigods. We have so many examples on earth of children who are just the sons of well-to-do people, and they have so much privilege just for being born or descendants of very well-to-do people. So, and even if we're not very rich by, material standards, we're in human bodies. We have cell phones, we have laptop computers. We live in the United States for the most part. And so just by being born in this country, there is so much that we can be proud of. Um, and that pride is sometimes it's intoxicating, and we can forget the eternal position of the soul, which is to be humble and totally dependent on Krishna. So always conscientious of dependency on Krishna. We can forget and think that, oh, this is taken care of. Nala Kuvara and Manigriva were naked, bathing and just intoxicated and drinking. And when Narada Muni showed up, they didn't offer any respect or realize what a fortunate thing to see Narada Muni. We hear about the past time when Prabhupada was in New Dwarka and he was laughing. And the devotees asked him later, well, why were you smiling? Must have been at a atypical time. And Prabhupada said, Narada Muni walked through those doors. So those that are sober minded and those that are very grounded in their spiritual identity, they're always happy to see others that are equally conscious of Krishna or even more so conscious of Krishna. Um, Parikshit Maharaj, for example, even though he was the emperor of the world, he was named Parikshit because, he was always looking for Krishna. Um, the The word perimeter comes from that or parikrama, looking all around, and iksha, just always looking everywhere for Krishna. Where is Krishna? He saw him in the womb, and for the rest of his life, he's like, where is that person? Um, and he was so happy to come across the sages along the banks of the Ganges when he was cursed to die. He was like, now I'm, now I can dedicate myself. But what should I dedicate myself to at these final moments? And he came upon Shukadeva Goswami, and I just started the eighth canto again, and Shukadeva Goswami is giving a list of the manus that are supervising the maintenance of the world. And in one of those lists, he mentions, oh yes, and in that Manvantara, Krishna appeared as the son of Harimeda, as Hari, and he liberated Gajendra. And then before he even continues, Parikit Maharaj is like, can you describe that more? What is that? So he's listing so many manus and that are taking care of the order of the world, but the second that he describes Krishna or an incarnation of Krishna, Parikit is like that. So he's listening so attentively that any description of Krishna that he doesn't know about or that he hasn't heard so much about, he's asking to clarify. And that's the spirit that these devotees have of always being excited to be in the company of others that want to speak about Krishna. So we learn from that Nalakuvar and Manigriva that, oh yes, pride had overtaken them, and they were cursed, and so their pride brought to them an unfortunate result. However, and this is what we really take out of the story for the most part, the gift and the curse of Narada, right? So many of us are feeling a bit cursed to be with the jobs that we have, or in the particular context in the material world, or with some kind of difficulty. And so it brings us hopefulness to think that, okay, Manigriva and Nalakuvara were cursed to fall from their position, but that curse was mixed with a blessing. And so it opens our mind and our heart to say that, to think that, or to see how is the curse that is affecting me now also a blessing? How is this job an opportunity, even though it feels like a curse? How is it an opportunity for me to develop something, to develop some quality, perhaps patience, um, or 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 how is this difficulty that I am experiencing? um, uh, meant to bring me closer to Krishna, right? That's one of the lessons that we get from that story. But Gopal Champu brings it even a step forward, because in a sense, that's still the affliction of the material world, to see in dual, that there's a gift and a curse. But Gopal Champu is exclusively dealing with the spiritual activities. And so it's showing that, after Nalakuvar and Manigriva were resituated in their positions, after taking the very fortunate birth of appearing as trees in the backyard of Nanda Maharaj, where his darling child Krishna was walking around, even after all of that time, after the the completion of their duty as demigods, they retook their ultimate position, right? Because there's falling from there's not being in your spiritual condition forever and being in a material situation, and then there's also um, just being in your eternal spiritual situation.
For a minute. Can everyone still hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Prabhuji, we can hear you.
Wonderful, thank you. And so in the Gopal Champu, we are seeing that, and just in case anyone hasn't read it, I won't tell you who they are. But when you do find out who they are in the spiritual world, it's quite an exciting and revealing moment. It's very nice. So we find that story in the 10th canto, and now we'll continue with the purport. For the Supreme Lord, both the Asuras and the demigods are equal, but the demigods are obedient to the Lord, whereas the Asuras are not. Therefore, the example of picking out a thorn by another thorn is quite befitting. One thorn which causes pinpricks on the leg of the Lord is certainly disturbing, and the other thorn which takes out the disturbing elements, certainly gives service to the Lord. So, although every living being is a part and parcel of the Lord, still, one who is a pinprick to the Lord is called an asura, and one who is a voluntary servitor of the Lord is called a devata, or a demigod. In the material world, the devatas and asuras are always contending, and the devatas are always saved from the hands of the asuras by the Lord. Both of them are under the control of the Lord. The world is full of two kinds of living beings, and the Lord's mission is always to protect the devatas and to destroy the asuras whenever there is such a need in the world, and to do good to both of them. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam. Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Patitanam Pavanubhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Gidim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. I first of all offer my obeisances to my spiritual master, by whose mercy I'm given the opportunity to be in the service of the devotees. Give my obeisances to Srila Rupa Goswami and wonder when I will receive his mercy. I offer my respectful obeisances to all the devotees, you who are in the audience today, because by your presence here, I'm actually allowed to do service to Krishna today. And I pray that I may have your blessing so that I may say something that is helpful to you in your devotional service and purifying to me and mine. And I again offer my respectful obeisances to my spiritual master, by whose mercy a mute person can be made to speak very eloquently on these subject matters, and a lame person can be made to cross mountains. Hare Krishna. I'd like to begin with a question, which is here, Srila Prabhupada is saying that the Lord sees the demigods and the asuras as equal. So my question to any of you is, why should we care about being on the side of the demigods or on the side of asuras? Why does it matter if Krishna is seeing both of them as equal? What's the difference?
If I may, Prabhu,
Yes,
thank you for the speaking and the teachings. I appreciate it.
yes.
Uh, to me, it's amazing to hear that Sri Krishna sees both as equals, but knowing the amount of love that Sri Krishna has for all creation, it doesn't surprise me too much. I think the love that we feel for Sri Krishna, at least for me personally, inspires that devotion and that willingness to serve. Because if there's a choice between being a thorn in the side of Sri Krishna or a thorn that removes another thorn, I'd much rather be the one that helps rather than the one that harms. Just intuitive pull to love Sri Krishna all as much as I possibly can, the same way that he loves us.
Hare Krishna. Django Prabhu, thank you so much for your answer. You said something that Prabhupada sometimes says too, which is that we should not be surprised. You know what he'll bring up something that Krishna does, and he's like, but it's actually not so amazing because it's Krishna. Why would it be surprising that he would love the demigods and the asuras the same? So that is a nice spirit of appreciating Krishna's wonder. And the second thing you said, that's a good point. So we could be the thorn on the side or the thorn to help. And so the natural inclination would be, wouldn't it be so nice to do something good for the person that's doing me good? That's very nice. And Jewel, I'm not sure you said something as well. demons don't love Krishna and you would like to love him? That's a good answer. Yeah, that does anyone else have something to say? Any point we haven't covered? Those are very nice. That Hridayananda Maharaj once said, Bhakti Yoga, even though yes, Bhakti Yoga is mystical, it's connecting the infinitesimal with the infinite through the bond of love. It's extraordinarily mystical, and that the uncatchable Krishna, the person that people are controlling how they see the world. They're, instead of saying, oh, that belongs to me, they're saying, no, that belongs to Krishna. And instead of tasting things in the world because of what they'd like to eat, first they're putting it on the altar. They're trying to listen to vibration that connects them to Krishna. So, in other words, the senses that are directed outward are being directed inward by the yogi. That person who the yogis are trying to catch, who is very difficult to catch, is becomes subordinate to the bhaktas. He agrees to be bound with ropes. The person who is beyond all of the many multi-universes that exist can be tied and can be knotted to a mortar by the love of his mother. The person who has entered into the hearts of all living beings by his own desire is kept from a grove by the best friend of Srimati Radharani, who says, you cannot come here. So that's certainly a mystical thing. However, Hridayananda Maharaj says that it's simply common decency. That Bhakti Yoga, beyond being a very mystical thing, is also the most sensible thing in the world. Like Django and Julian Yatra were mentioning, Krishna has done so much for us. Yesterday, I was walking on the temple grounds and I saw a squirrel that was making this. I'm trying to think of a different word other than terrible sound, but it was a very curious sound. It wasn't like a bird, it wasn't like a dog, but it was the mix of barking and chirping. So it was, but not burping. And the squirrel, it was using its vocal cords to the best of its ability to make a sound. And I was appreciating that I can make so many sounds with my voice, including chanting the Maha Mantra, a sound that lets Krishna know I'm thinking about him. So there's this one place in the Nectar of Devotion that Srila Prabhupada says that when a devotee desires to practice devotional service, their heart gives off a certain fragrance that becomes very attractive to Krishna. So everyone in the material world is thinking about something, but the devotees are thinking about Krishna, and so it sticks out to him. It's like imagine the whole world is dark. You look at the world from a satellite from the outside, and the whole world is dark. The electricity has gone out for everyone in the whole world, and then somewhere there's a light coming from earth, and that light obviously is Krishna. And Krishna is the light of the sun and the light of the moon. And so when a devotee is thinking about Krishna, um, they're actually illuminating the earth by inviting Krishna into this darkness, into the darkness of their own consciousness, and into the darkness of the material world itself. And so it sticks out to Krishna. And so that's what we're doing when we're practicing devotional service. And it's the decent thing to do, because Krishna, so he's given us he's given me and all of us the voice to do that. He's given us a body which we can do handstands with, and ride on skateboards and bicycles, and run through the fields and pick flowers, and do amazing things. We really do so many wonderful things with this human body that we couldn't do in so many of the other bodies that are available to the soul. Just think about what you can do as a tree. If you're lucky, you're a fruit-bearing tree and people really want to keep you around. But if you're one of those trees that people just see as good for paper, they just grow you for a little bit and cut you down and turn you into paper. Or a raccoon. You just kind of walk around in the dark and look in people's trash cans for other things, and you know, you can have like a nice time sleeping a lot, but the point is that we're in a wonderful body and Krishna has given us the opportunity. So it's bhakti is the decent thing to do now. Oh, Krishna, thanks for just giving me an opportunity to use my voice. What better thing to do with my voice than just give thanks to you? Um, that's to this last point. What is the difference between what is the point if Krishna sees demigods and demons equally? It's partly for our own good fortune of we want to be connected with Krishna in this way of love. In one of her talks, Urmila Devi Dasi said that it's not often told, and Django, I don't know if you've heard this, but we're often told that devotional service will bring an end to all of your problems. Have you heard this?
Yeah, I have.
That practice, the reason why we have material problem or we have problems at all is because we're not connected to Krishna. But once we connect ourselves to Krishna, we will have no more problems. That's been what you've heard, right?
Yes, Prabhu.
So I'll ask you a question. What happened with Kunti that we've been reading along? Was she in any troubles? Or was Arjuna in any troubles when Krishna left the planet? And is Parikshit in any trouble? He's the one hearing this whole Bhagavatam. He was cursed to die. So are they not practicing Krishna consciousness, or are they just not Krishna conscious enough that they have troubles? What do you think?
I think trouble comes from the Leela that we're all expected to perform in. I personally experienced trouble despite having as much devotion as the Lord has graced me with. I don't really have a great answer for you, but for me personally, having trust in Sri Krishna to care for me through the trouble, I that times is enough. There are times when I ask for more guidance and more support, but I know I'm always protected thoroughly. So the troubles continue, but the support is there.
You sound like a true sage, Django. Yeah, that is the case. I like how you said that the troubles are part of the Leela. So what that proves to us is that Krishna consciousness is not without suffering. The difference is that the suffering is real, or the suffering is true, or another way that we can see it is that the suffering is appreciated. Um, Yeah, Urmila Devi Dasi was saying that we don't often hear that in the beginning, but there is suffering in spiritual life in the same way that there's suffering in relationships. But the suffering in spiritual life it's part of the flavor of what that love is about. So I'll give my example. Like I have there's suffering at my job. And then there's, to not use the harshest word I can, there's difficulty in relationships as well. The difference that I feel in my heart is that the suffering that I get from work, it's for $1. And it only becomes worth it when I can connect that dollar to something at home that's tangible. Okay, we're going to get boga so that we can offer to the deities, and that prasad is going to be something that we can honor and give thanks to Krishna for. I can use that dollar to go out on a trip, and we can go to the mountains, and we can connect with this like very peaceful and beautiful world that Krishna has provided. when there's difficulty in the relationships, there's always a deeper connection that comes out of that difficulty that reveals to me what is my own capacity to love. It reveals to me my partner, my wife's capacity to love. It reveals to me the beauty of vows and how vows are a way to travel through the choppy water of the material world. But now imagine, for example, you are impersonating a soldier, or you just put on the clothes of somebody that delivers mail. Let's do that one. Let's say that one day you just dressed as a FedEx worker for Halloween. And then one of the managers at FedEx gave you a key to a car and threw you in a van and said, all right, I want 200 packages delivered tonight, and it's got to be by 8. And you kind of want some candy, and so you stay in the outfit, and you're like, yeah, there'll be candy over there. You can go get it. But you got to deliver these 200 packages. And then you go out there, and in the middle of the day, you're just fumbling everything. You don't know how to use the button to scan. You don't know where the addresses are. You don't know the neighborhood. And then on top of that, your manager is calling throughout the day saying, you're a terrible worker. You're doing a terrible job. Who would keep the costume on? Eventually, you would just take it off. Be like, you know what? I was pretending to be a FedEx crew. This is not what I do. You can yell at somebody else who actually deserves to do that. So a lot of our suffering in the material world comes from that. We're wearing a mask that isn't even us. Who of us is eternally men or eternally women or eternally 37 or 46 or 60 or American or Indian or Russian or right wing or left wing? All of these identities that we hold on come with it expectations and responsibilities. A person that voted for Joe Biden or that's on the left has to have a certain type of opinion. And if they have another opinion, everyone else in the group is going to say, that doesn't sound right to me. And an American, someone that's born in this country, has to have a certain opinion about the country and has to have a certain opinion about economics within a boundary. But if you have opinions that are the outside, you can get in trouble from the authorities, despite how free they say the country is. You still can't speak freely on every topic without being ostracized by other people in the community. And what do you get? And what do you get for following the rules? You get very little. You get very little for being a good American. You get very little for being a good man. You get very little for being a good woman or for being a good 30-year-old or an 8. So even if you try your best to fulfill this role that we're pretending to be right now, it ultimately doesn't bring satisfaction to the real person we are. Because remember, on set, actors are not eating real food. And they're also, even if someone else is praising them, like Django said, it's part of a role. So even if we behave well by material standards, the praise that we get, it's almost like part of the pretend good that we're doing in the world. It's insubstantial. But what the demigods are doing is they're connecting the good that they have a desire to do for the supreme good of Krishna's will. And then it's substantiated. Then it's something that's revealing about, because it's the good that we're doing in the world. It can be for the pleasure of the other people that are performing roles like us, which is forgotten eventually, just like, I forget what I did a week ago, or we can do good that is inspired by the supreme good person. And that is a dynamic kind of good which doesn't always look the same. It's a dynamic good that awakens who we are really. A lot of the mundane good is just like it's robotic, right? Like a lot of the mundane good that we do is It's like muscle memory. Like right now it's popular, like something is popular in the United States right now to have an opinion about, for just to give an example, about Palestine or Israel. So it's like robotic that you hear from somebody that's on the left what's the right opinion to have, or what's the popular opinion to have about this conflict or war, and you hear on the right. And then, well, I'm on the right, and so I'm just going to repeat that because somebody is more intelligent than me has thought about it, or I'm on the left and somebody that's more intelligent than me has thought about it, and I just parrot it, I repeat it. Now, that's not dynamic because it's just something that's happening on the mental platform or even intellectual platform. But when we do service for Krishna, it's actually activating the spiritual platform of who I really am. What's my real identity? And that purifies my intelligence, and that purifies my mind, and it animates my mind and intelligence to act on behalf of my real identity, not so that my intelligence or that my mind can just be an echo of someone else's personality. Why that is, and why that's ultimately so painful for us is because we have to suffer the repercussions of someone else's personality. I have to suffer the repercussions of a decision that somebody else made, right? Or about decisions that I misspoke. It's not decisions that somebody else made. It's by my inappropriate or foolish identification with something that I'm not. I now have to suffer that reaction. And that makes us get angry, and that makes us lose our patience, and it makes us greedy for a life that we don't have, and it's all this terrible confusion. So that's why we desire to be on the side of the demigods, not because it's better in a material sense, not because externally it looks like Indra is enjoying more than the person in the hellish planet, or the asuras are always being punished. It's not because we don't want to be defeated, and it's not because we want to be victorious. It's because we want to be on Krishna's side. It's because we want to be connected with who we really are. Remember, sometimes the devotees suffered defeats. The Battle of Kurukshetra lasted for 18 days. And if I'm not mistaken, Mokshada Ekadasi was last Monday, right? So the Battle of Kurukshetra is still happening. You know, that was just last Monday. And we're now on the 6th day of the battle. It was gruesome. And so many people lost their lives. And it was, you know, as the Yadus left the planet, sometimes for the Leela of Krishna, there will be difficulties. And it's not that and why we have to get that, we have to really understand that is because Krishna is going to put us in difficulties because he's in control. And that's what he needs to have happen for our own purification or for what needs to happen on earth. And the sooner that we can see that that difficulty is not his dislike of us, but that difficulty is something that we need to pick up and move forward with, the sooner that we're going to establish ourselves, will be stable in our devotional service. It won't be that I'm a devotee when things work out for me, and I'm questioning whether or not I'm a devotee when things don't work out for me. The world, not only the world needs stable people and stable devotees, but we also need it for ourselves, because everything that we require, beginning with peace, requires this kind of stability and consistency. And the world also needs that. The world is in so much confusion because there's so much instability of what's right and what's wrong, what's good, what's bad, who's a leader, who's a tyrant. So the more that in our very small communities and in our own homes and in our own hearts, we can be stable in Krishna is my Lord, regardless of what he does. He's the person that I'm reaching for, and I'm here for this adventure. I'm ready to figure out who I am and who he is, and to just participate in this relationship of giving and receiving forever. And the world is going to look different always. But what will not change is that he's here and I'm here. And there is something between us, and the journey of my self-discovery requires finding out what that is. So everyone else around us will also benefit, because they can get upset with us and we will have lapses, but every day more we will be more fixed in our relationship with Krishna, and we won't give that back to them. They can be upset with us, and that upset can end with us. And it doesn't have to push back on them and to get them further agitated and to just keep perpetuating this suffering that's going on in the material world. It can end with us the same way that when we're upset with Krishna, he doesn't make our lives harder. It actually just makes our lives harder by convincing us that, well, we need to look at someone else other than Krishna for fixing things in our lives. Those are some things that stuck out to me. This point about the Yadu dynasty relinquishing their bodies as a part of Krishna's Leela. That Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur desired to say something that was palatable to the devotees, and that he cared about his audience. That's also something very important to us as members of the Krishna consciousness movement, who are followers of Srila Prabhupada, who is a follower of the 6 Goswamis, who follow Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We are connected with Krishna's purpose on earth. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu desires that everyone in the whole world know that God is a person, that he has a name, and that we can connect with him by chanting those names for the purpose of reawakening our relationship with him. So a lot of what we say is going to be unpalatable to the world, which is oftentimes not publicly interested in God at all, and would rather promote temporary relationships as the most important thing to do, or the most important relationship to fulfill. But we can take a cue from Sutta Goswami, and we can realize that there is no harm in being patient with other people. There is no harm that comes from activating our intelligence to learn what are creative ways that we can present Krishna consciousness to a culture that seems externally disinterested in it. We will learn something about ourselves. We will learn about Krishna's compassion the more that we personally try to be compassionate for other people. And it creates a feedback loop. But when you're patient for someone else, when you dig deeper into your own heart to find your greater capacity for patience, you will find behind you Krishna's even deeper patience. Because remember, Janmadi Asya Yataha, any capacity for virtue that we have is part of Krishna's nature. So if we can tap into that, you will certainly see that Krishna has done that for you. And so it's just the decent thing to do it for someone else, and obviously to do it for Krishna. So that is the wonderful invitation of Krishna consciousness that Srila Prabhupada has presented. And finally, this point about equality is important, because so often in the Bhagavad Gita, and in the 2nd chapter in particular, Krishna speaks about equanimity. He speaks about the winter and the summer seasons. He talks about hot and cold. He talks about praise and criticism, fame and infamy, and that a yogi must learn how to tolerate those dualities. And from my reading and from my studies and from what my Guru Janas have told me, the only way that is possible to maintain our consciousness fixed despite those dualities is to fix it upon something that is stable. And what is stable is the lotus feet of Sri Krishna and the lotus feet of the spiritual master, which are fixed in their devotional service to Krishna, and in our personal instructions from such personalities to gather around and read Bhagavatam daily, to reach out to Krishna by chanting, to offer prasad, or to offer bhoga to Krishna, and to share prasad with the devotees. So all of these activities are eternal, and if we can beg to have some kind of taste in any one of them or in all of them, our consciousness will become fixed, and it will become easier to just retake that relationship with Krishna as the most important focus of our lives, despite all of the obstacles. And then we will be Krishna conscious and happy and able to help others truly. Thank you so much for your kind attention and for your presence here. I'm enlivened to see your names, and to know you all. So it's really a nice to get an opportunity to speak the Bhagavatam. If there was any mistake in the presentation, please take the time now to correct me, or you can reach out to me. But just the fact that we're in an audience, it might be better to do it in public. And if there's any comments that you have, please take this time also to share. Otherwise, yes, Hare Krishna. But one other thing. Today we're observing the disappearance of the spiritual master Srila Prabhupada. So these days that the dear servants of Krishna decide to actually, just the two verses before this, it says that Yudhishthir decided to go back to Godhead. These days that pure devotees return to their eternal occupations and service with Krishna are important for us as followers of them to meditate on their services here on earth. What they decided to come down here to do is important. And so we can honor that by dedicating some of our meditation to that, and in seeking out in our own hearts the desire to assist in those kinds of services. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dhanraj Prabhu. Thanks for joining us this morning and giving such a beautiful and insightful lecture on this verse, especially while being 3 hours ahead of Pacific time zone. We're truly grateful for your dedication and deep references and clarity for presenting on this verse. I humbly request devotees, feel free to share your reflections, any questions for Dhanraj Prabhu or appreciations.
Thank you, Vidagdha Madhava Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. I had a question. I think it's interesting that the Yadu dynasty passed while intoxicated, especially with the common nature of intoxication in our society these days and pretty much throughout time. I'm curious to hear your perspective on how intoxication can interrupt devotees' eternal servitude to Sri Krishna, and any inflections or reflections you have that might clarify that for me personally, please.
Thank you. That's a wonderful question, Django Prabhu. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness has been well known among practicing spiritualists since its inception some 60 years ago, particularly because of the 4 regulative principles that were required of initiated devotees to follow. There was a time during Prabhupada's presence that some sanghas would actually use those exact principles as a reason why they should join their sangha. So they would write, you can have illicit sex and practice intoxication and gamble and have meat. So it was almost like just verbatim what was required of the devotees here to take initiation to join the sanghas there. So that's one anecdote just about the history that those principles have had in society. It's important for us to remember when we're thinking about the principles that they're connected with ethical, behavioral norms that are required of people, and that the principles themselves are not spiritual acts. Uh, Not eating meat is connected to the principle of ahimsa or nonviolence. So there's so many living beings that are nonviolent but are not necessarily spiritual. So intoxication is, I think it's connected, and if there's a devotee here that can remind me, I believe that it's connected with the principle of austerity. That when we practice and when we intoxicate ourselves, let me look up actually, because I'd like to give the right information. What ethical principle is connected with no intoxication? I believe that it's connected with the act of non-practicing austerity. When the world becomes difficult, usually we're affected by some kind of intoxicating substance. So externally, this may look like um, consuming like some kind of drug or illicit substance. It alters our perception of the world, so that the difficulty that is affecting our senses becomes easier to tolerate. Austerity, on the other hand, is voluntarily accepting difficulty for the purification of the senses and the consciousness. My spiritual master, Dhanvantari Swami, in a class once said that after we become pretty proficient at refusing external forms of intoxication, we should also develop an acuity for resisting internal forms of intoxication, which show up in the form of anger and greed and jealousy. These are things that pollute our consciousness by our own lack of control of our mind. So your question was about how intoxication can affect our Krishna consciousness. Intoxication means to distort the way that the world is. So when Krishna describes the material elements of the world, every single one of them you can imagine as a filter on consciousness. So the false ego is a material element by which the soul believes it belongs to the material world. That's the first layer of intoxication. I belong to the material world. I'm a product of nature, or in other words, I have a beginning, I have an end, right? I'm related to matter. I'm not related to Krishna. It's vague, it's abstract, but it's the first layer of illusion. The second layer of illusion is intelligence. It's a material element, and it's by which we think there's a way for me to achieve my ends by manipulating the world. Then there's the mind, which divides the world into good and bad. This is good for me, this is bad for me. And then there's space, ether, air, fire, water, and earth. Now, look at the material body. It's a combination of every single one of those material elements. And when the soul looks out at the world through the filter of every single one of those elements, it's intoxicated. It's looking at the world in a diluted state. And then it involves itself with the transformation of that body, by which it affects itself by anger, greed, pride, lust. These are further intoxicating things. And then it bends its intelligence back to the world to get a plant or some fermented drink to further intoxicate its perspective, because the illusion falls apart. And subtly, the soul is chit. So we have to voluntarily submit ourselves to the illusion of the material world to keep forgetting that our conscious awareness beaming through, which is just aware, I don't belong to this world. This world is not the way that it seems. So it's affecting our Krishna consciousness, because Krishna is constantly presenting the truth of the world, and we are resisting it. And so by practicing practicing austerity, we're voluntarily telling Krishna, I want to accept the truth of the world, which includes accepting the truth about who I am, about who you are, and what my relationship is with everything. And I know that it's going to be difficult because I haven't been doing it for a long time, but please, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Help me accept this truth. Is that a satisfying answer?
It's a great answer, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you so much for the wonderful class as always. As Vidagdhamada Prabhu said, really appreciate the amount of clarity and so many different thoughts, right, on how we identify ourselves with many different things in the world, and always have an opinionated mind, and ultimately everything is an illusion, as you said. And even the answer that you gave, I understood about external intoxication, but then you started talking about how internally also we are intoxicated, being part of the material world, made a lot of sense to me, Prabhu. Thank you so much again. Wonderful class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. And there's one thing I want to add to that, which is that it's important for us to remember that we're on the path of pravriti marg, in the sense of we are practicing spirituality proactively. We don't need to remember, I'm not my mind. I'm not a false ego. I'm not this body. The process that Prabhupada gave is das and dasi. You are a servant. So just and how can you use your intelligence for Krishna? How can you use your mind to see, well, Krishna sees everything as equal. How can I use my body to chop a vegetable and offer it to Krishna, or to clean the temple, or to pick up tulsi? We can get bogged down with how complicated the world is, and try to resist. Oh, I'm not doing this well. I'm not doing this well. But the process of Krishna consciousness is always proactive. What are the servants of Krishna doing in the spiritual world? How are the devotees in Bhagavatam reading? The Bhagavatam is not, what do materialists not do? The Bhagavatam is, what do spiritualists do? Bless you. So that I just wanted to say that to your point, Prabhu, about, yeah, it's so confusing how intoxicated we are, and we can just get worked up, like, oh, I get angry all the time. Yeah, Hare Krishna. But we also are faithful servants, and we should remember the good about what we do. And by one way to clean a dirty cup is to just keep it underneath a current of clean flowing water. That's the best way. So just be easy on ourselves. Just keep ourselves in good sangha, always reading, and everything will work out. Hare Krishna. I want to respect everyone's time. Thank you so much. We've gone a little over. But I really do appreciate the opportunity, and I desire the prayer and well wishes of each and every one of you, that I may assist more in classes and always get to read Bhagavatam with you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Vanchakalpa
Hare Krishna.
tarubhyacha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Ho.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhu.
Prabhu. Thank you.